I'm sitting here with junior at Indiana University pole vaulter Alex Shinerl. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for sitting down with me. I
Yeah.
just want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a college athlete, a Division I college athlete, I should specify. I want to learn a little more about track and field as a sport, because that's your sport.
Yeah.
And then I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the payment of college athletes. I know it's a
Totally
huge,
cool. It's a big topic.
huge topic right now in the news. But before we get to any of that, let's just start with take me kind of, I don't know how different it is for you in the fall season versus the spring season, but take me kind of in a day of the life of, in terms of not necessarily a day of a meet, but just a day of practice.
So when we start the fall, we start our conditioning because our season's indoor in the winter, and then in the spring we have our outdoor season. So we condition, and our conditioning days are some of our longer days. So when we start the fall, it's always a bit longer than it would be in the spring or the winter. And it's weird when you first come to classes and you're spending so much time on the track and not in the classes. But we start off, my event group, the pole vaulters, we wake up and we have weights at 7 a.m. And this is everyday thing. We have one day in the middle of the week to rest. We go from weights to class, and then we have practice in the afternoon, in a normal time that you wouldn't, right after school or whatever. But the only difference is the practices are a lot longer in starting in college. So whereas in high school we'd run until 4 or whatever, from 3 we'd start at 3 and we would get out at 5. But sometimes it'll be shorter. It kind of varies a lot, you know. So we'll do that, and then you'll go and get ready, you'll shower, and you'll go get something to eat, and then you go and you start working on homework. And I think one of the harder things about being an athlete is the fact that you have to start your homework a lot later. I feel like I'll get home and I'll be dead tired, and then I have to start writing a lab report or start an assignment or whatever, and I feel like I don't have enough time for that, but it happens, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like everybody's like that, though.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's doing something that will make homework hard to do.
Yeah. So indoor is in the fall. And which do you prefer between indoor and outdoor as a pole vaulter?
So we do indoor in the winter because in the Midwest we have snow and we have all the elements.
Yeah.
I jumped higher this year indoors.
Okay.
And indoors was a lot of fun, but there's just something about track and field that is outside. And I don't know if it's because we start it when you're in middle school or high school, and you start and you only have an outdoor season, and it's always so fun going to meets. And you kind of it comes around at the springtime, and you get to experience all the spring weather. So I think almost every track person is going to say springtime is way better. I feel like you can perform a little bit better indoor, but just because of the staticness of there's no elements to worry about. So but I think everybody will always prefer outdoor.
Yeah. So during the indoor season, the weather is not ideal a lot of the time. How do you find motivation to wake up early for weights?
That is horrible.
When it's snowing?
It is. There are some times when we'll go and you'll drive there and nobody will be out and there'll be snow. That is tough. We have a really good strength and conditioning coach, and so we see him in the morning, and it's when you got to find somebody to do it for. I'm always let's do it for Coach Will, and because he would want you to do it for you, right? But I think it's always he's kind of like the WWJD, WWWW, what would Will do? And
yeah.
So that's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you do it for the team, I guess.
Yeah. So that's interesting because how many pole vaulters are on, including women? How many pole vaulters are on your team?
We have 4 guy pole vaulters right now, and we'll have 4 girls this fall. And this is not including we have one girl who trains professionally with us, and she's amazing. She's so good. Mm-hmm. But so it's 4. We have a total of 9 probably.
Mm-hmm. And what percentage of the time are you with just the vaulters, and what percentage are you time as a track and field team as a whole, or does that even exist?
So I would say we're mostly with our own event group. We lift with the jumps group, and so we lift with the high jumpers and the long jumpers. And but other than that, we really almost practice on our own. And so we're part of this huge team, and it's but you can get secluded to your own area and your own specialty.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows, it's not cliquey, but it's like you have your better friends, and the better friends are almost always in the same event as you.
Yeah. Yeah. So during an average day of practice, what does pole vaulting practice look like? Because I literally have no idea.
Yeah, no. So during conditioning, we start with mostly running and getting in shape, and we'll do these circuits in the afternoon, just really trying to get into like a good performing shape. And then once we start getting closer to actual like competition time, we'll start jumping at practice. And so our jump days are really long. I would say sometimes we've had jump days that have gone like 3 hours in the afternoon. And so we'll be there. We'll have like lifting in the morning. We'll go to classes, and then we'll be at practice for 3 hours. But it feels like it's so worth it because our jump days are so much more fun than running or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We'll jump on a Tuesday, Thursday, and we're always so excited for those days. And so we always like play the music in the car, and we eat the pre-workout or whatever. And our group especially just likes to try to get the juices going, like almost like a Chaz Michael sort of thing.
So going back a little bit, how did you originally get into pole vaulting? Because it's not something that a lot of kids can say they started.
So pole vaulting's super fun, and I encourage everybody to try it because I think it's just so random. And so in high school, you can be so bad at it, and it's so fun. Like we would go to meets, and we'd have like nobody who was any good in high school. I started because I was actually never like really athletic as a kid. And so I always did the track team because that was like the no-cut team, and that was the team that you're always going to be in an event or whatever. And it was one of the ones I was better at. Like I was a terrible soccer player. I ended up being a good swimmer in high school, but so I played soccer 1 year, swam, and I was like, okay, I need to do track in the spring because that's what I've always done. And so I get in there, and when you look over and you're like doing a running workout and you see people laying on the mat, mm-hmm. just like chilling or taking a nap. Like in high school, pole vaulting is so casual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and it's, you see them and you're like, wow, that's such a cool mat. That's such a cool pole. And I want to go try that. And like, and if you have somebody who's good, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're just totally, it's one of those ones that really is eye catching.
So it's interesting that you say it's so relaxed in high school, because I'm curious a little bit about the transition. I know a little bit about the recruiting process for basketball, football, and stuff. I have no idea what the recruitment process is like. Like, do you have to perform at certain meets? Do you just send in kind of heights that you can vaulted?
It's basically as simple as you send in heights, and then if the coach likes the heights, they'll be like, do you have any video? And then you can see if like the technique is good enough to like continue going on and being able to grow as an athlete. Mm-hmm. And I think I had probably lower heights than would probably be normal for a Division I athlete, but they saw my form and they're like, man, that is terrible. Like, we can fix that. Like, there are some issues there that will be easy to fix. And like, oh, he's super tall. Like, he has a lot of potential in terms of energy. And so that it's exclusively for pole vault. It almost can start with just sending in the numbers. And as sports like football or basketball, you got to go to your combines and whatever. And I feel like that's a lot more money.
Yeah.
Also, like, as for somebody who was like a low income family, couldn't go to these AAU tournaments or whatever. Yeah. And so track is almost an easier sport for somebody to get noticed.
That's interesting, because I would think, just from my experience as an outsider, that track seems like a pretty expensive sport. But
it can be, but it's like, it seems like the high school will always, in terms of what you need, a high school can pay for.
That's really cool.
In track.
That's really cool. So I'm glad that you've had this opportunity. How did you get connected with Indiana University?
So I live in Indiana. I'm out here visiting some family and friends and stuff. And I had always said growing up, like, we moved out, we lived out west, and then we moved to Indiana, and I was like, oh, I hate Indiana. Like, I'm getting out of here as soon as I can. Yeah. And then I kind of like, my junior year came around and I started jumping, and I was like, oh, I'm actually, like, I ended up doing okay at it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wonder if, like, if a couple of small colleges, like, reached out to me and were like, hey, you can do this. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I was like, maybe I can go somewhere really big. And so I started sending stuff to a couple of schools, and I sent them to like Purdue and Indiana, and those are like local schools. Yeah. And Kentucky even. And so I started getting recruited by them, and I remember sending it to Indiana and being like, I looked at their like performance chart, and my heights were like quite a bit lower than what like they expected for like an incoming freshman. Yeah. And I was like, Oh, well, I literally, it was like one of the only times in my life like where I've been like, well, you know what, whatever happens, happens, you know, because everybody always says that, but nobody ever does it. And so I sent in all my stuff, and like that day, the coach called me and was like, hey, like you have pretty good grades, you did well on the ACT, and you have a decent jump height, like can I see some videos and can we talk about it? And he got me to come on a visit, and the visit is so fun.
Yeah.
Like going on college visits is so cool because when you're a recruit, everybody pretends like they're going to pay attention to you like a whole bunch, and then you get here and like it's like whatever. Or at least for a track, maybe basketball is different or football is different.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's pretty similar, to be honest. So okay, so tell me about the college visiting process. Like, I'm sure you tour the facility, but what other kinds of things do you do?
So you get 5 college visits. You can visit up to 5. Like, it's called an official visit. You go, and there are unofficial where you go and visit the track and you can talk to the coach, but you can't really like do anything. Mm-hmm. But an official visit, you go and you can get you get your hotel paid for, and you get your mileage reimbursed that you come visit. Like I remember, I drove up, and since I paid for gas, like it was like taking my dad on a vacation because we got to stay in a hotel that like the university had paid for because like trying to get me to stay there, and like we got like gas money back, and so that was kind of fun. But you go on your visit and you have a host who is on the team, and a host is like probably usually one of the like the younger athletes, one that you can relate to more, and they kind of take you around for the weekend, and it's super fun.
Yeah,
because it's like they're like the coaches tell them, hey, try to get this kid to come here, and it's like, hey, these guys are really cool because you're in high school and they're college athletes, right? Yeah. And they look so cool. And
yeah. So have you hosted anybody now?
I did. I hosted one guy who was really good, and I tried really hard. But I mean, he was a super nice guy too. Yeah. He ended up going to Alabama. He yeah. Well, yeah. I guess some people don't like Alabama. I guess I just really like the guy's name is Ryan. I was like, I guess I really like him, so I like Alabama.
Yeah, there you go.
He was a really cool guy.
Are you still in contact with him?
I haven't really, not really, but I mean, I feel like I could if I needed to.
Yeah.
He's just a really nice guy.
That's cool.
He like won state, and he was a lot better than I was. Like in high school, like he was a lot better.
Yeah. So did you enjoy that hosting process?
Yeah, I can totally see how somebody would be like, oh, this kid's better than me. Like I don't want him to come here and like be better than me. And I feel like it wasn't really like that. I feel like he was just a cool guy. Like because I had met him at the state meet and we had talked to each other and we all had fun. Like everybody in pole vault is all friends because you're not really competing against each other. Usually you're competing against like the bar and trying to go as high as you can possibly go. And so it seems like it's a less competitive, but when things go badly, it's super competitive with yourself. Like you're so mean to yourself.
I'm sure.
But so I knew Ryan, and he was a cool guy, and I think that was part of the reason why the coach was like, "Hey, you should host Ryan." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I know him from the high school meet and stuff."
Gotcha. So you just finished your sophomore year. I was looking back at some of your freshman year. I want to call them statistics, but it's hard for track and field because it kind of just has results.
I have done very badly in college.
You tied for 4th in the Hoosier Open, which I'm assuming was at Indiana.
Yeah, we have a couple meets.
And then you were 3rd in a meet at Purdue, which, hey, Purdue's a conference rival.
Yeah.
That's
my freshman year was really bad. Pole vault is one of those things like you definitely need time to be good.
Yeah.
And I feel like since I started in high school, I started kind of late compared to other people. Mm-hmm. And so I was facing like freshman year injuries because you come here and instead of laying on the mat all day, you have to run, and it's like, what is this? And so
you have to be an athlete.
I was like, the rest of the athlete part was crazy to me. And so we started having to work out, and I felt like I was always injured, and I felt like we were really young in terms of pole vault knowledge. Yeah. And so the sophomore year we got a lot better, and so that means that they haven't put in the stats for sophomore year yet, I'm sure. I did a bit better. Yeah. I did.
Yeah. Sophomore. So I looked. Congratulations to Indiana getting 2nd at the Big Ten Championships.
Yes, it was wild. I didn't help at all.
Well, you tied for 15th in pole vaulting. I saw that.
Yeah, that was so. The pole vault is really weird. It's one of those events that can go really, really well or really, really badly. Mm-hmm. And I ended up having it like going so badly that I didn't even think it was humanly possible. Because I go in there and I start jumping like the best I've ever jumped in my life.
Yeah.
I've been jumping really well like the last week of practice. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do so well. And then you get 3 attempts at your opening bar, and I felt like the opening bar was really high, at least for me.
Uh-huh.
And so I get up there, and I messed up the first 2 of my jumps. I messed up the first one because it was an error in the way that I had been running. Like, your run changes from warm-ups to the actual competition because you have your more adrenaline flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this run was all off, and so I took it up, and my takeoff was really bad, and so I couldn't do anything. And then that second attempt, I was on a pole that I had usually been on, and pole vaulting is weird because you use poles. Like, and all of the poles are they're so slightly different, and they all react a different way. It seems like they all have different personalities.
Yeah.
And I'm on a pole that I've like usually been on and usually been really comfortable on, and is actually sort of one that's probably a little bit stiff for me. Mm-hmm. And I go and I killed it. It was way too small, and so my momentum carried it too far, and I rolled it way in, and there was no way for me to possibly like clear a height at all because I was. When you blow through a pole, your energy is converted horizontally instead of vertically, and you want to be as vertical as possible. So that was another like missed attempt. And then finally, on my third attempt, I'm up a pole. My run's really good. I take it off, and I'm on this pole that I've never jumped on before. It was like a huge milestone pole. It was my first pole that was weighted, like a 200-pound person pole, and so that's like a big deal because you go from the 190s to every pole you've ever been on has been a 100, and it's like 2, and it's really cool. And so everything is so perfect, and I have such a good jump. And the opening bar was about 16 feet, and I was a foot or a foot and a half over it. And I knocked it off with this tiny little bone in my elbow called like the radial ulna. Oh. And so this little bump cost me probably the best performance of my entire life. Like,
wow.
It's so sad, and it's so like
game of inches.
Of course, of course that happens to me at the biggest meet of my life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's interesting. So there are times when you're running up before you even put your pole on the ground that you're not going to clear it.
Well, you always are like you're going to clear it this time, but you always are also like, what really? Yeah. Or at least I am, and maybe that's why I'm bad. But I'm getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're still young and only halfway through your college career. I was trying to look at, so you redshirted for...
Yeah, I redshirted my outdoor season, which is kind of the season that matters. I had the injuries going on, and I had the unknowledge. I was not ready. And I would even argue that I wasn't ready yet this indoor season and it's part of this outdoor season. I was finally ready at the end, to do what I needed to do and to score in the meet and to bring team points. And I wasn't able to, so I redshirted that outdoor season. So I actually could come back for a 5th year, but I don't know if I'm going to do that.
What do you think will influence that decision? Will that purely be school, or will it be...
I actually probably am going to take a 5th... I'm a pre-med student, and I'm doing a double major in German and biology. And I started off in business school, and I took a semester of classes, and I hated it. It was the worst. So I switched to medicine, and I think it's been like the best decision I've ever made, except that I am a little bit behind because of that semester of business school and stuff, and being in track and not having enough time to take all of the classes that I think are supposed to be in one semester or whatever.
Yeah,
I feel like my credit load has been lower than an average student because I have to go to these practices.
So you would, in your 5th year, potentially just focus on school?
Probably just focus on school, relax, or study abroad, yeah.
So professional pole vaulting is not in the future?
Well, the only reason that it would be is if I start just absolutely destroying it and killing it, and
so okay,
which is a possibility, but I don't know if that's
yeah. So professional pole vaulting, obviously I know the Olympics, which I'm sure a lot of people know of. So how do you make money as a pole vaulter professionally?
So pole vaulting is actually one of the more interesting ones in track and field to make money as a professional. Sydney, I'm just gonna say her first name, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sydney jumped here my freshman year, and she had taken her redshirt 5th year. She did almost the same sort of thing, except she was injured, and she ended up being really, really good. Yeah, and started like winning all of the championship meets and winning the 4th at nationals or whatever. And so she decided to go pro for this year. Yeah. And so what that does is she got an agent, and an agent helps her book these street vault track meets or what another, like there are actually quite a number of professional track meets across the US during the given year, indoor and outdoor.
Yeah.
And there's the USA Championships every year, and you get to be on the team that goes to the World Championships and competes for the U.S. if you do well enough.
Yeah.
And so then there's the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So just different kind of.
And you can make money,
events.
and so pole vaulting has a thing called street vaults where cities will try to attract people to come in, and it'll be really exciting if they just put pole vaulting in a street because it's so interesting to watch.
That's crazy.
And so they'll shut down a road, usually like a downtown, and you can compete at it. And I've competed at one before. I was in like the high school division. I wasn't in the professional division. Mm-hmm. And they'll like shut down the road, and you'll compete there for prize money, and those are like way more fun.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's all pole vault. You're there, like people are there to see pole vault.
Yeah,
they're super fun.
Pole vaulting fans.
The street vault, yeah.
So okay, going back a little bit to the Big Ten championship meet. For those who don't know, the Big Ten is one of the best conferences in the country. One of the Power Five, as they're called. So tell me a little bit about that meet, because you said it was the biggest meet you've ever participated in.
It is crazy.
I'm sure, because there's a lot of schools in the Big Ten and a lot of high power schools. In terms of, I looked it up a little bit. I was trying to do some research.
I mean, you guys are out from the West. I don't expect you guys to know Big Ten crap.
From what I saw, it looks like you were 61st at the beginning of the year as in Indiana University.
Probably.
And the highest school that I saw was Nebraska. I think was ranked 9th. Does that sound right?
Well,
because you placed above Nebraska in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, it's so weird, because track and field is one of those things where it's like you have this team of 100, but so many of them can be injured at any time because you're getting trained so hard.
Yeah.
And it's all impact. In swimming, you can train for 4 hours a day because you're doing a movement in water. But when you have this impact on your joints and knees and stuff, it causes a lot of problems. We should have. That doesn't sound right.
I probably don't have the right statistics. I'd have to go back on that.
If that might be based off of like national performances, but at the same time, I would say that there's a lot more to track and field than national performances. Sure. I would say conference championships are your best measure of who has the best team, because at a national meet, you only get to take 1 or 2 or 10 for some schools, like athletes, to the meet. But if you have a conference meet, you take as many of your team as you want to, and we always took the smallest team. We always we have strict like minimum heights or minimum time requirements for you to make our Big Ten team and to get on the bus. And so we take like 19 guys to this meet, where you're allowed to take 1.5 times that. Like you can take 32 people to a meet, and we take 19. And we are usually in the top 3. So I would say that we're a pretty good program because we have such good distance runners.
Yeah.
We have a really good distance team. Nebraska is pretty good at being all around. And they have especially good like multis and field events and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Ohio State did really well this year with their sprints.
Gotcha.
They were able to basically win the meet based on sprints and pole vault.
So in that meet, there are just not only a lot of athletes around, but I'm assuming there are a lot of fans. Where was the meet this year?
So indoors is in a place that was supposed to rival Chula Vista's Olympic training facility,
but
doesn't. It's in Geneva, Ohio. It's unfinished, and there's gravel parking lots.
There you go.
And then outdoors, we rotate the Big Ten schools. And so the reason why outdoor Big Tens was so big is we had it at home this year. And it was like, wow, we need to have this meet here, and we need to like win it at home. Yeah. And we got second.
Yeah.
And rest in peace.
Was it tough on your team, especially for like the seniors? Was it tough to have that?
So the seniors were really good, and we had a team. My freshman year indoor season, we won Big Ten, so we did really well. It was awesome. And so they kind of had that, and they were always really happy about that. But that last homecoming probably would have been really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the final thing I want to talk about is there's been a lot of conversation around paying college athletes.
Yeah.
This conversation, from what I've known, has started mainly through football and basketball, because the amount of money that football programs and basketball programs are taking in is
football and basketball are totally different than something like track.
Yeah. So so tell me about your point of view.
It's crazy to think that the NCAA kind of really can suppress not track athletes, but like these football and basketball stars. They kind of get the NCAA can kind of take advantage of them in the sense that the NCAA is the organization that is in charge of the money that is coming from watching these 5 guys or 11 guys on a field play.
Yeah.
And it's not the NCAA who the people are there to see. It's the athletes who are doing the job for their university and stuff. And NCAA is just really, really strict on everything.
Yeah.
I think that if athletes were to be paid, I think that it should be the football and basketball players.
Okay.
Certainly the most. And by the most, I mean, it's still not like a ton, not like a professional athlete's salary or anything.
Yeah.
I think enough to like help support a family, because one of the reasons why people will leave college to pursue the NBA is these guys need to like pay for their families and need to pay for all of the, like, they need to get like their mom out of these terrible housing situations or whatever they're in.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in college.
Yeah.
And so if you were able to have like a stipend, you can have a stipend for food and for rent if you're a full scholarship student, or if you're half whatever, and you can get like money for that, and you can probably send it back to your family. But there's really incentive is to go pro. And so that's why you see so many one and dones in football and basketball. You learn how to play against these guys, and then you go to the next level.
Yeah, make some money.
And so I bet it would actually make college basketball a lot better if college basketball and college football, if athletes were to be able to be paid like a junior salary. And it's hard. It would have to be certainly based on what the university brings in terms of revenue.
Yeah.
And so that's why another thing it is more relevant to a football and basketball players, because a track team doesn't really bring in a lot of revenue, or a rowing team doesn't really bring in a lot of revenue. These are the school sports that are like making the school. Like you think of the Ohio State University, you think like Cardell Jones or JT Barrett, like all these like phenomenal athletes that come out of there, and you can name their names, but the NCAA has not allowed them to use their names. Name, image, or likeness or anything as an athlete there. So it's just really, I don't like the NCAA.
So would you say this is on your team? I guess you can only speak for the track team in
Indiana.
Indiana.
That's true, yeah.
But on your team, is this a conversation, one, that's even happening at all? And two, do you think more people land on your side of the argument, land on the other side? Like if you were to pull 5 people on your track team, how do you think it would pan out?
I would say probably most of them would say like these other athletes should be paid, and it's like maybe even if there are kids on our team that are like competing for the U.S. Like we have so many good kids on our track team that are on the full scholarship and are on the USA teams and stuff, and it's like maybe they should even be thought about. Like these, and it's hard because then it becomes like the extra benefits talk, and it all bleeds together, and maybe the bottom line is that the NCAA just has too many rules, but I would say most of them would lean towards allowing a stipend or something for the families of these football and basketball players. Because if you go to a university and you're trying to get an education and you get an underwater basket weaving degree, because that happens, right? Or you try to stay to finish that degree and you break your ankle and it ruins your chance of being a professional athlete. All of the work that you've put in for your entire life to do and to give back to your family is all gone, right?
Yeah.
And even the universe, sometimes like you'll have coaches that'll, if you get injured and it's bad, they'll just drop you. And a lot of people like try to say like, no, they'll never do that, but I've seen it.
You never know. Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, it can be. For sure. So it sounds like you are a Big Ten football fan, naming off Ohio State.
I am a fan of a lot of things, but not like super into anything. I feel like I would probably even say I like basketball more, but I just don't know anything.
What's your favorite sport to watch at Indiana, outside of track meets, of course?
Outside of track meets. Our basketball atmosphere is amazing. In Assembly Hall, you go and it's completely full, especially when the team's doing well. That's kind of like a good thing.
Yeah.
But we picked up Romeo Langford this year, who's like a number 4 or 5 in the nation or something. He's super good. And it's like, maybe it'll be super fun to go again.
Or maybe it'll be middle of the pack Big Ten again.
Well, middle of the pack Big Ten. The Big Ten's pretty good at basketball.
They've been okay.
Yeah. I guess I'm biased.
Michigan was in the championship.
Michigan was good. Purdue was good before that guy broke his elbow and had all the STDs or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. All right. So, Alex, tell me your favorite sports memory of all time.
So I feel like I have so many fun ones from college, but nothing is as good as when I was a sophomore in high school and I had the way that our state tournament works is you have a sectional meet, a regional meet, and then you go to state. And to be in the state meet, you have to finish third or top three at regionals. And to finish top three at regionals, you have to finish top three at sectionals. And so it's like the top three keep moving on. And so my sophomore year, I had been a like an okay pole vaulter, and I won like a lot of meets, but I had never like jumped really high. And so you get to these sectional meets, and there are like a lot of people that are higher than you. And so I got like third at sectionals, and I was like, oh, cool, I get to go to regionals. And so regionals was a really fun, like really, it was like the first really like big track meet that I went to, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And then like with the full like stadium or full like bleacher stand. And so there's all these people like cheering on the running and stuff. And I ended up at the regional meet PR and like breaking my record by like 1.5 feet somehow. And which is like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it just came out of absolutely nowhere, and I was able to like qualify for the state meet, and I was like getting off the mat, and I was like jumping up and down and like hugging people and stuff because it was awesome. I got to go to, I tied for third place to go to state.
Yeah.
And state was the next weekend, and I was so not ready for it. But it was like, it was so fun being like good, being like, oh, what? I get to go to like the big dance.
Yeah.
Like that was really fun.
Yeah.
I didn't do well that year, which is a reoccurring theme among my athletic career,
Yeah.
But just like feeling that good after doing something that was like so crazy.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was one of those things to be like that people would talk about or whatever, which is always fun.
That's super cool. Yeah.
And that was it.
That's a good one. Okay, here's a little rapid fire with Alex Shinerl.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm going to get it eventually. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you a question. It's going to be about sports. It's going to be about life. It's going to be about totally whatever. Cool. First answer that comes to your mind, okay? Are you ready to get started?
Yes,
we have our arbitrary ticking noise that isn't actually a clock counting down, but hopefully stresses you out a little bit more. Are you ready?
Yes.
We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Favorite track in the Big Ten outside of Indiana?
Michigan's indoor track.
Most hated rival in the Big Ten?
You have to say Purdue. Just in Indiana.
First time that you ever pole vaulted?
High school. I won the JV meet.
How old were you?
14.
Favorite San Diego activity?
The beach.
Favorite sport to watch on TV?
Basketball.
One good thing about the state of Indiana that we don't know?
Indianapolis is cool.
Favorite Pokemon?
Oh, man. Charmander.
Favorite food?
Pizza.
Field event you would be doing if you weren't pole vaulting?
I'm so bad at other things.
If you
I would love to do like the high jump or the javelin. Other field events for sure, not running.
Your favorite month?
March.
Your favorite college class that you've taken so far?
Human sexuality.
And the question we ask everybody, your most used app on your phone?
Twitter.
Wow. Okay.
Twitter or Snapchat, yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me,
fun.
Alex. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. That was fun.